Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Just Another Kill Team podcast, connecting kill team communities across the globe. If you're passionate about the tactical skirmish game that brings together strategy, lore, and creativity, you are in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay updated with our latest episodes. If you want to support the show, check out our Patreon. Your support means a lot to us. Follow us by using the social media links in the podcast description for all the latest news, and be sure to leave a review to let us know what you think. Thanks for tuning in. Here's today's episode.
Yeah. How has the German? I mean, you're in your part of Germany. I don't know if it's central Germany, I guess. And then
yes.
How is the rest of the German kill team scene? Because we haven't really had anyone on since June who was talking about Wrecka Krew back in the day.
Yes.
So how's the German kill team scene been growing?
The German kill team scene is growing immensely. I feel like Germany, compared to a lot of the other major countries, have the problem that it is very fragmented when it comes to the scene itself, but it is very well alive with a lot of different events. There are efforts now in place that in Germany that people are trying to connect the different clubs to each other and also the different events. So it could very well be that in the future, the German kill team scene will be a little bit more cohesive. But when I started out with Kill Team, I was like, oh my God, no one is playing it. So I kind of have to I have to play the strongest strategic ploy that I know of, and that is kind of community building, because it's very difficult to play if no one else is playing. So the first couple of events I hosted here at my home, so it was like I was just like, oh my God, no one's playing it. But as it turns out, a lot of people are playing it, but we are all in our own bubbles. So now we are connecting the bubbles, and I feel like there's just no, or at least until now, there hasn't been a lot of efforts to create something cohesive. For example, when we are talking about tournaments, it's like there are actually a lot of kill team tournaments going around in Germany, but they are not centralized anywhere. We use like T3. I don't even know if you know that. Some use Best Coast pairings, some use tabletop heralds, some use some even more obscured platforms, and some just organize them on paper.
Yeah, it's great that technology in Warhammer 40k is much like the real world, where you just pray to separate machine spirits and hope that everyone can collate the data.
Absolutely. Yes. So the kill team scene is growing. So I'm in Frankfurt here in Germany. That is pretty centrally, as you mentioned, and we have like 3 major clubs around here that all do play a lot of kill team. One is the Quest Hub, one is Tabletop Board Games, and one is Asgard Aschaffenburg. And especially Asgard has been amazing in organizing regular tournaments. And that is kind of funny because it is like a very, very small town close to Frankfurt. So the first time I played at a tournament there, I didn't do my research. I assumed like, oh, okay, this is like a very small town, so probably a couple of locals were playing. But oh my God, as it turns out, like all the really good players are coming. So that was a pleasant surprise.
Kind of reminds me of talking with some of the Texans who have come onto the podcast a couple times, where they have like these really large geographical differences, and then one of the hubs is the college town, like an hour away or 2 hours away from everything else, which is kind of funny.
Yes, it kind of was like that. It was funny because at that event, I pulled in 2 of my kill team friends who are actually pretty good players, but have never participated in any tournaments anyway. So they were really nervous, and I kind of had to talk them down and tell them like, no, this is like a very small town. So we are playing against some locals. They're probably very noobish, so play like soft, help them. And Jesus, we played like, I don't know, against the top 10 of Germany or something like that. But the good thing is we didn't know when we started playing. We only found out like in the last round.
This is also like the Midwest experience, where the Midwest people in the U.S. will just go out to other events and start doing well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious because we have the World Team Championship coming up in a couple months,
Mhm.
which is like a big team tournament in Europe for anyone who is listening and doesn't know what it is. I think they have, I want to say 20 different countries showing up this year. Do you know if there's a German team? Have you been privy
Is
to those
it
conversations?
the WTC or what are we
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, the
Yes, it is.
WTC.
Actually, the training camp for the German team is next Saturday.
Oh, nice.
I am one of the punching bags there.
Hey man, you got to build up those scenes somehow, right? And I guess one of the big things about the WTC is since all the countries are located nearby, it's fun to have a little bit of country rivalry before you go in.
Absolutely, I really like the concept. Actually, it's like I like to curse at people in different languages.
Yeah. What are you going to be the punching bag for? What have you been playing? Because I assume you've got a couple specialist teams that you've been playing, back in the day. It sounds like you were playing Wrecka Crew, but it sounds like you're on some other stuff right now.
Yeah. So when my team picks, so right now I'm playing Wrecka Crew and Inquisitorial Agents, and people are always wondering why the hell I'm playing Inquisition, but the dirty truth is I'm an insanely slow painter. So usually all the teams I play are kind of anachronistically because I just manage to finish them when no one is playing them anymore. But it actually has the advantages. You lose the advantage of early overpoweredness, but you gain the advantage that no one is prepared against them anymore. So although inquisitorial agents, at least from my perspective, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about it, have a struggle a lot more these days, I had my fair share of success with them because no one's preparing against them anymore. So yeah, works out well. I like to be the dark horse. Not yeah. Yeah, not the same with Wrecka Crew though. So I just love orcs. So when Wrecka Crew came out, I knew I kind of have to get them together.
Yeah, I mean, look, neither of those teams is what I would assume is, good in the meta right now. They're fine, they're
Yeah.
playable. Wrecka Crew obviously have some notable strengths when you get a little lucky at the beginning of the game because you just cruise through the mid part of the game with your extra sixes. And then on Inquisition agents, they were really, really powerful, but at Worlds we found out they weren't as powerful as Space Marines. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of push and pull as far as what I'm curious about. Jason, do you have a direction you want to go?
I mean, inquisitorial agents have like a lot of flexibility with all of the different kind of like auxiliary pieces you can take. Is there a certain set of ancillary that you always take, or do you have like a giant roster?
I would start one step before that, I would say. So my general thought on inquisitorial agents right now is it is probably the least beginner-friendly kill team. And because to even get to a base level, the mental drain is very high. And it is not easy to outsource that mental drain to your enemy, because this is something I like to do. When we talk about Wrecka Crew, I can say a little bit more about that. But with inquisitorial agents, it's actually, you need a certain level of masochism because you have to juggle a lot of things in your head anyway. And from my perspective, their strength definitely lies in their ploys and in their complexity. And that's kind of going to your question, because what makes them strong theoretically is their adaptability. And I feel like this is where they are a little bit lackluster. They have like a lot of theoretical options, but often these are only flavors. So what I like to do is like, yeah, I sometimes do exchange one flavor for another, but the let's say the core idea of at least how I play them stays the same. So at its core, it is more a horde shooty team that need multi-layered synergies to work, and you're pretty good at hindering the enemy's game plan. And so at its core, for me, it means you kind of have 4 shooty operatives, no matter which one you choose. You usually have like 2 melee operatives. You have like a very large support cast, like 4 or 5 support operatives and then maybe 1 flex operative. So this is how I approach the team. So it's not even like just model to model based, but this is like the structure, and I like to look at larger teams that way. So I know, for example, the way I play them, it is like you have a very large support cast. So thinking how to optimize the use of the support operatives is very important. Otherwise, you just have a ton of guys that are doing nothing.
And I would assume right now, because Astartes are such a big part of the metagame, and they're really hard for most of the Horde teams to deal with, you've gotten some piles of synergy that work out pretty well. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, sure. So the way I approach Inquisition is like in layers, because the one is choosing the operatives. And so when it comes to that, I would say, of course, Khazakins is like the go-to, and everything else is just measured on them. So I feel like you can probably play Khazakins against anyone. I am a little bit like, I'm cheeky. I often like to try the things that other people say are not do not work well. For example, I still like to play Death Corps, because I feel like, especially against melee teams, the 1 additional body is actually well worth it. And with the Confidant that allows you to kind of group activate someone else, you can get some nasty combos that some people might not be totally aware of. But as I said before, generally you are taking all the gun. No matter which requisitional team you're taking all the gunners, and then you are taking some of the better supports. I usually, So, and then maybe 1 or 2 melee operatives, depending on what you're playing with. But So let's say on the operative choice level, I feel like you can play with a lot of things because most of them are just flavors. What's more important is, and this is what makes Inquisitorial Agents difficult, I feel like, is the placement of all the auras and the interactions. And what I like to do is Inquisitorial Agents is complex, and I'm trying to use the complexity against my enemy. With what I mean with that is, if you're playing against total pros that know anything, that doesn't work. But against, let's say, most people, even good players, it puts stress on them to have to track all your special rules. And so, very inquisitional, I guess. This is something I like to use against my opponent. So I let them track my rules, and that actually often leads to them making mistakes.
Or you can make them make mistakes with the counterspell, basically, right? Like they're tracking a whole bunch of different things, and then they ask, and you're like, okay, this is what's going to happen unless I can do something else. And if they walk into it, at some point, the counterspell will go off, and it might be at the worst time.
Yes, absolutely. And usually, generally speaking, I like to play fast and brutal and aggressive games. But with Inquisition, I usually go a slower route. I feel like because you more or less have like a 24 APL team, which is a lot, but you're losing bodies very quickly. So I usually try to not engage too early to have the 24 APL advantage for as long as I can. So I think this is definitely one of the adjustments that I made in my play after all the nerfs to Inquisition.
I assume you're standing, in your drop zone a lot more than you would have, at the beginning of the edition.
Yes, and also because of in this edition you only have like 3 primary objectives that actually I feel like you often do not need to move as much as in the last edition. So yeah, I often play a little bit more defensive with Inquisitorial Agents.
Yeah, that all tracks by my perspective. It's interesting to hear that you're still using Deathcore a little bit, just because I feel like Deathcore are pretty underexplored on the Imperial or on the Inquisition agents. Obviously, the Confidant is an interesting one. Do you have any big combos that you've used with the Confidant? I know probably in the dark you get some extra door opens that people aren't expecting, but you're losing the ability for straight up relentless on a shooting attack, which comes from Deathcore. What's like the gnarliest combo you've gotten with a confidant in the context of a game?
Just the usual ones, because you activate a melter gunner or something else who's on the front, and you can, for example, either, depending on where the confidant is, like crack grenade with charge, or if you're already in melee, you are finishing someone off, and then activate the melter, for example. I feel like this is already pretty strong, or even double melee, depending on the situation. But I mentioned I usually like to play the Death Corps into melee-heavy teams, because I feel like the one additional body actually is helpful against melee teams, not just in just meleeing people and blocking people, because in melee they are more or less the same as Khazakins, but it also helps you to block far more space, for example, on vantage points. If you want to establish a fire base, having one additional body, so that actually it's more or less unclimbable for melee teams, is a pretty solid move, I feel like. Yeah, and I still, let's say, if we're stepping outside tactics for a bit on Inquisition, I actually do hope that they get a meaningful upgrade in some way, because I feel when it comes to Inquisition, GW is not using their full potential. What is actually lacking is they could just add more requisitional teams to them. That would be absolutely awesome, because a lot of the teams right now are, as I said before, are more or less flavors to me. And just imagine how it would be if you could, like, I don't know, take half a team of Angels of Death or something. That would be like crazy, and it would also give you the opportunity to give you far more different options. And
they could just give you 2 Angels of Death with, one or two
it would just be fun, or even like Rattlings or something. That would be it would just be fun and give you more options. So that's why I feel like, we can go a little bit more into the details of which operative to take and which individual combos to make. But I feel like this, in the end, in a lot of the other teams, these combos are very important. In Inquisition, I feel like they're less important, because more or less, at least the way I play Inquisition is more like a carpet. So I am doing a lot of things, and I'm trying to overwhelm the opponent with information and with all the things I do. And I try to maximize the APL advantage as much as I can.
Yeah, just thinking about, having Death Corps against the melee teams, having a confidant with your pistol gunner in the background, both of them having APL because you backloaded it with the Vox operator, and then just having, 5 APL blitzing through your opponents with theoretically a servo skull to go do a mission action does feel pretty good.
Yes, definitely. And I feel like another layer of Inquisition that makes a huge difference is like you kind of need a plan on how to use Quarry and Denounce, but this is not easy to describe without concrete examples. But this is usually what I think about even during placement. I know it's kind of tedious, but it is a useful mental exercise.
Actually, this is a good point. What helps you play Inquisition agents faster? Because one of the big problems with Horde teams, just generically for most players, is learning to play them fast is hard. And Inquisition agents, because you have so many options, increases that mental load. When you are learning how to play them, obviously you're putting a lot of mental load on your opponent by giving them a bunch of rules up front, because this operative's got this thing, this operative's got this thing. Oh, and this operative over here, he can cancel your abilities. But in the back of your mind, what you really care about is quarrying the specific guy so your Meltagunner can move up and then shoot.
Yes.
So your opponent is getting like stuck in the haze, but on your end, you're also gonna have to learn how to build up all of those mechanical play style things very quickly. So what things got you to like playing Inquisition agents quickly?
Good point. I mentioned before, like you have like generally speaking 4 Shooty operatives and 5 support operatives. And I mentioned this because Inquisition works a lot with support models. And you have to realize that, I feel like. And if you have really realized and accepted that, you can play a lot faster, because this is just unusual. Not a lot of teams have that many like support operatives. And this is what usually puts a lot of mental strain on your thought process. So understanding this is like, if you are having like a slow round, meaning you do not need to generate tempo fast, it's like just play all the support operatives first. Maybe, for example, in Turning Point 1, it is like this. You can play all the support operatives, and the only one you need to play later is the Vox operative, especially if you go with Kaskins. So you can put the APL on the
operatives have already gone,
yes,
so that next
absolutely.
turn on turn 2, you're
and
ready
for
to
Turning
go.
Point 2, yes, and for Turning Point 2, I feel like, or at least in one, preparing for Turning Point 2 to play faster is to understand how to use denounce the best way. The best way, at least in my perspective, is to only have one point of engagement going into Turning Point 1. And it kind of sounds obvious, but if you keep this as a strategy, you put a lot of mental load on the enemy, actually, because if you only have like one obvious contact for first activation, it doesn't matter if you get initiative or not. If you get initiative, you can either rush them, or you can even sometimes play slow, like going activate Vox operative first if there's nothing to do immediately, then like just spam additional APLs. And if you lose initiative, you can just denounce them. It also only have like one point of major contact, also makes it easier for the quarry target. Because one problem with the quarry target is not just to understand which models to target and where to put it, but also to understand that actually who you design as your quarry target sometimes influences who your opponent will activate.
Yeah, just so anyone who doesn't know what Inquisition Agents does, Quarry is your strat gambit ability to basically pick someone, and then all of your operatives are ceaseless against them, and then if you kill the Quarry, it moves to someone else on the map. So, as one of the counterplays for Inquisition Agents, if they quarry one of your guys, you sometimes just run that operative away, because if they can't get ceaseless for the rest of the turn, a lot of the times you're just hitting on 4s. Which is why Casterkin is such a popular choice for them, because they're almost always hitting on 3s, so it mitigates some of the squishiness around your rolls, right?
Yes. Oh, maybe one thing that I'm experimenting with and having success with is not taking the Mystic. It is, I feel like yes, because the Mystic, of course, is very powerful, but he lost the double buff potential. And then, if you look at it, it's like the Mystic has the most powerful Seek, one of the last Seek all shots, but his gun is unfortunately crappy. But besides that, especially I only use his offensive buff, and his offensive buff means you can either turn a miss into a hit or a hit into a crit. And if I'm being honest, when I need it the most is if I need to guarantee crits, and that's usually on the Melter Gunner, for example, or sometimes on the Heavy Bolter Servitor. So, but there are a lot of teams where I probably do not need the Melter, and not just the Horde teams, but even, for example, against Goremongers, whose range damage is capped at 8. So you do not need the Melter. And so my train of thought was the following: like, if I do not need guaranteed crits, maybe what the Mystic brings has less value than me just bringing additional combatant like Panel Legionary, or even against some Horde teams, I'm experimenting with the Auto 7. It's like it's difficult to make it work, but the more I play it, it's not bad, actually, because Inquisition is such a CP hungry team, and you need someone to place beacons anyway. And there are a couple of factions that actually use the same ploys every single turn, so you get a lot out of it.
Yeah, up to a maximum of 2, basically, right?
Yes, but still, as I said before, Inquisition is really power hungry, CP hungry.
That's true. And against certain factions, what comes to mind as a faction that is always going to use a play? I guess obviously Angels of Death are almost always going to use a doctrine.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and when it comes to CP, I count like this. So without a CP generator, you have 6 to 9 CPs throughout the entire game. And that means I'm probably going to use Quarry at least for 3 turning points usually. I'm probably to denounce once. And I'm going to use Absolute Authority. That's the no means no ploy, meaning blocking one of the opponent's ploys. So this is already like 6 CP that I'm definitely going to use, and all the other ploys are good as well. So it's like you the struggle for it's very difficult to get. You need more CP.
So the Auto Savant has come in instead of the Mystic, just because
Yes,
in some matchups people are going to use ploys. Like Goremongers want to turn on their ploys for multiple turns of the game, so just getting one more bonus CP in a Goremongers matchup when you have your extra Death Core of Krieg to go stand in the way means that you might get a Relentless in Pursuit when they try to, they kill someone and they move off. You might be able to get someone else to jump in the way and stop a Goremonger's charge, right?
Absolutely. And in alternative, you can just take an additional combatant like a penal legionary or something. I feel like it has been more useful than I thought originally.
Have you ever gotten any use out of the Sisters of Silence? I know this is like probably a moot point, but it is kind of interesting to think about. Oh, you just have 5 melee operatives against these other melee teams.
I mentioned I tried crazy stuff, so I do have tried it, but it didn't satisfy me. So I think you could probably make it work, but it's because what it does is it radically simplifies your team. But then I feel like you're trying hard. It just doesn't play that much into your strength.
But you become like a middling power level melee horde team. I mean,
yes.
To be fair, your melee operatives as they're staging up are harder to shoot because you got a 3-up save, but they're not that much more lethal. I mean, they are more lethal than most of your other melee operatives, but it probably doesn't really make sense. I was just curious if you've given it a try.
I tried everything, like trying to make the Hexorcist work. Also one of my pain points. Oh no, the Hexorcist is not even that bad. The which one? The
Enlightener.
What is this? Yes. Oh my God! I tried so hard to make him work, but it's just like I tried to be political.
He seems like perfectly situated to fight against Blooded and the other melee hordes with 7 wounds, because then he can go in, kill a single dude, get a CP, so you can spend the CP on something else. And then he also has the ability to like chase after people, but that's basically it, I think.
Yes. So in theory, he should work, but I kind of always regret to take him. Someone else would have always been better.
So definitely a shooting team, not really going for the melee skews. Basically, chuck in the exaction squad out the back door. It sounds like.
No, I actually also like Exaction Squad. Usually my real go-to, if I'm playing seriously, is Kha'Zixins most of the time. But if I'm going to play against a heavy melee team, I take Exaction Squad because I feel like they have like very solid choices. But as I said before, I'm also experimenting with Death Corp. It also works. Yeah,
and at this, the German WTC scrims, you're going to be on, I assume, Kasserkin most of the time. Are there things that specifically for the players who are going, you're supposed to be practicing on to give them good matchups for?
I'm probably not playing Inquisition against them because Inquisition is not particularly on the rise. I've also played Nemesis Claw in the past, so I'm probably going. So I will be playing whichever team they need me to play and which I have experience with. So probably Inquisitional agents probably won't see a lot of action, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I think it might make sense. Inquisition agents probably have a couple matchups. Where do you think Inquisition agents' current good matchups are? Because in a team setting, you could theoretically have Inquisition agents put onto the field both on good boards or against good opponents and kind of work it out from there. So I'm curious, since you have been playing them and you like them, where do you think their strong points are in a meta that seems so hostile to wide horde teams right now?
I feel like their strong points is definitely against every team that actually relies on scoring points instead of just killing stuff. Against the very killy teams, I feel like Inquisitorial Agents is a little bit on a disadvantage because you still have to place a lot of beacons and you die like flies. So you are juggling too much actually. So so I would say this is the line I draw.
All right. Inquisition agents definitely in a weird spot right now.
Yes, I sincerely hope they get a little bit, just not necessarily buff, but a change to the teams they can mesh with. That would be awesome. Yeah.
I mean, if GW is listening, that does sound like a fun thing. Getting 2 recruited Angels of Death would be kind of hot.
Let them be definitely. Inquisitorial agent one, like allies like Grey Knights. Give me some Grey Knights. I love Grey Knights. Death Watch?
Yeah, or Death Watch or something. Yes.
You have it in both directions, right? You can have the Ordos Hereticus, pick up some Grey Knights, and then the Ordos, go get the Death Watch.
Yeah.
Or maybe that'll be the future, Death Watch SKU. That would be tight. I'm still waiting for them to go back to the big guy, small guy formula in this edition.
I would love that. Yeah,
because the Death Watch models are at least scaled to the right size. I think right now they're firstborn; they're a little shorter. So getting them back in the game, everyone always memes that it's called Kill Team, and we still haven't got a Death Watch team. So I would be down.
Absolutely, I would love that. Yeah.
Put some hype on their names. The other team has been Wrecka Krew. I think in the past you were talking about doing pretty well with Wrecka Krew. 15-4 is a pretty good record.
Definitely. Wrecka Krew is one of the surprise teams. I played them because I love orcs, but when I started out, when I just read the rules, I thought like, I don't know. I feel like this team will bore me pretty quickly. They sounded like very straightforward in the way they are, but I started to really love the nuance of them. People tend to say that the Wrecka Krew is really swingy, and that is true, but people tend to talk about the swinginess of the team by inferring it's completely random. And I have different feelings in that regard. I feel like playing Wrecka Krew is a little bit like playing poker. There is a luck element involved, but it's a lot about not just risk management. It's like you are a loaded gun. You don't know. You don't know if it will. You don't know if it will jam or not. So better make sure that when you try to shoot, it's worth the shot. So what I like to do with Wrecka Krew, generally speaking, is I play insanely aggressive. Not in the sense that I'm like doing some kamikaze moves, but my thought is like this. I am anxious that I'm not getting Wrecka points, and my opponent is anxious that I'm actually getting Wrecka points. So I want to set everything up that he is more nervous and more anxious about that fact than I am actually. So, and another thing about Wrecka Krew, in my opinion, is they have very bad map coverage. They are more or less a 6 model team with 2 APL, especially from their movement speed. So this means you have to move them very aggressively, and especially to me, it means I have to make the most out of counteracts. So I often place like far more of my models in engage order in the first turning point than is probably reasonable, but it works out pretty well because often you need the 2-inch move, like the poor man's dash for the counteract.
Interesting. Do you ever end up using the armor then, or is the movement just too much of a sticking point, so you're never using it?
Pardon, the armor?
The extra armor that gives you an extra wound and makes you
Oh
slower?
no, I don't know. That's completely crap in my opinion. It's like it's
Yeah,
because
same.
it goes into the same direction of choosing which rocket launcher. I never pick the heavy one because I just need the mobility. It's otherwise you're just too slow in my opinion. Yeah.
What, one of the things that I've been noodling around with, just thinking about the game, especially after talking to Vivek from Canada about how he's been setting up his Corsair Starstorm Duelist with an ammo crate, to go yeet a dude off into the enemy lines to go blow people up, is ways for Wrecka crews to try to start farming some of that CP early. And, having a pulsar rocket with an ammo crate early on lets you chuck a rocket with 7 dice and then run away for later, or like move up into a forward position. And then you've got Overwatch or, counteract with your gun, and you've shot the pulsar once, and then that gives you basically another chance to shoot the gun for the rest of the turn, just because I don't know if you're going to be able to really kill an orc in cover.
So I'm not a fan with Wrecka Crew with the ammo cache. I feel like it's just not worth it. But generally speaking, or at least for Wrecka Crew, I feel like it's not as important to gain Wrecka points dribbling in. I rather want to have them in bursts. So I want to have at least 3 at the same time rather than have one and use one, have one additional one. So like setting up opportunities to gain Wrecka points is very important. I feel like the bomb squicks play a major role here because there are 2 reasons for that. For one is if you melee with a bomb squick and then it dies in melee and explodes afterwards, that are 9 dice that you're going to throw. Number 1. Number 2, bomb squicks are in the category of operatives that opponents really hate. It's like snipers. I often feel like bomb squicks and snipers aren't even that important and deadly, but people just give them more credit than, or at least they really don't want to get killed either by a sniper or by a bomb squick. Maybe it's the additional humiliation, I guess. So what I like to do is I like to set up bomb squicks as zoning tools. So what I usually do is, of course, it depends on the opponent. But if for example, if it's a completely all melee team, I go all engage with everyone and try to, for example, shoot the pulsar to get some Wrecka points. But usually, the pulsar, the main use of the pulsar for me is not to gain Wrecka points. You're rolling 6 dice, and then on average it's 1/6. That's nothing. So this is not something I will be counting on. But I want to set up a very, very, very strong turning point 2. Or if it's a Shooty team, I am very willing to trade at the end of turning point 1, especially if I get counteracts. Because with the just a scratch and the potential of healing up again on turning point 2, I feel like you can trade pretty solidly. And also when it comes to trading, I feel like Wrecka Crew are one of the crews that can trade very well even if you are mutually obscured because of
true.
So this is like, for example, against Shooty teams, this has messed some of my opponents up. It's like, I have no problem to just duel with you on range while we are both obscured. It's like, yeah, maybe, so my odds to kill your operative is still far higher than yours to kill mine.
Yeah, because 1 stray hit is 4 damage, and most of the shooting teams are like 7 wound, 8 wound operatives trading from far away. So yeah, you'll take it because you've got 6 dice on 5s, and you only need to land 2 of them to kill your opponent, right?
Yes, and you always have the kaboom for the blast +1, which is also, especially in turning point 1, where everyone is like often very standing very close together and bunched up, is very strong. And for the glyphs, in the beginning, I thought like, so glyphs is one of the equipments that allow you to pick one of 2 ploys to play more or less for free each round. And you have the bar glyph for melee reroll and the destruction glyph that gives you saturate, so ignore cover. And I really have to say I'm a huge fan of the destruction glyph. Because so I know it's less popular, but it has a couple of often overlooked and underestimated uses, I feel like, especially in Turning Point 1. For example, if the opponent takes light cover, I know Destruction Glyph will be useful in Turning Point 1 for the reason, if they are behind light cover for whatever reason on Volcus or Beta Decima, you can more or less shoot them from a vantage point without any disadvantages.
Hey everybody, here doing our own little personal ad read for our respective tournaments. The New York Open, October 18-19, one of the last golden tickets before the actual World Championships of Warhammer. And Jason's got the Renegade Open.
Renegade Open hopping in right after that, which is going to be the first, maybe the first golden ticket event for the 2026 season in just outside of Minneapolis, pretty close to the airport, November 22 and 23 with a golden ticket.
Yeah, tickets are up on sale now at ny-open.com, and Renegade Open, you'll get tickets up when you get them up. And links will be in the show notes when it comes up.
Hope to see you there.
So this is something that people often miss, and I feel like this is really strong, and you can do a lot of pot shots with that.
So how many range operatives are you taking? I know generally Wrecka Krew is perceived as mostly a melee-centric team, but I have heard of some people locally and at a tournament recently where they were playing Beta Decima. They just took all shooting operatives and they just chuck dice at their opponent until they die.
I've done that. For me, Wrecka Krew is a ranged team because for two reasons. One of them is the APL limit. You are really slow, so it takes ages for your melee operatives to get where they need to be, and you are only chucking 4 dice in melee. That means far less opportunity to generate Wrecka points. So you are usually starting later to roll dice, and then you have less die. So for me, it's like so when it comes to Wrecka Krew, I feel like you can play different combinations. Even the very balanced team, meaning you pick one of a kind of each operative, works pretty well. But I usually have like 2 rocket launchers and then the special rocket launcher. So it's like I have like at least 3 range as my go-to. And then there are certain teams. It's really team dependent, because one of the dangers of having like an all shooty team is you are even slower because you can only reposition. But for example, against Hyrotech Circle, which is like the absolute horror for Wrecka Krew, they have these. So I don't know if you ever wanted to know how it feels like to play within one APL team, play Wrecka Krew into Hyrotech Circle. It's like this. So this was actually a desperation measure on my part, because I was like, holy crap, it's like I'm just crawling around the battlefield against Hyrotech Circle. And I felt like, okay, if he makes my life miserable, so my go-to is, if I'm playing against Hyrotech Circle, they give me the pleasure of experiencing to play within one APL team. Then at least I will return the favor and give them the experience of playing kill team with diapers on. Because when I'm taking all shooty, all rockets, they will shit themselves. Because actually it's really brutal. I feel like 5 rockets and the knob with like twin pistols. This is a lot of shooting coming your way. A lot of shooting.
Yeah, because everyone is firing 6 dice, and sure, they've got a good save, they've got 10 wounds, they've got the ability to regenerate, but every once in a while you just hit them and they die.
Absolutely, and everyone who is important will get tons of shots in their face.
And I think one of the aspects of playing Wrecka Krew as a slightly more shooting-centric team is you have the 2 distractions that your opponent probably has to go on to an engage order to interact with anyways, right? Like the 2 bomb squigs demand attention, and if you ignore them, then they might kaboom and hit 2-3 guys, and then put you up to 6 Wrecka Krew points instantaneously.
Yes. one of the setups for at least one of the bomb squicks for me is if I take the fighter, the one who can breach walls. I usually breach the wall, so I let him reposition dash in the first turning point, and then use the counteract to breach the wall. It's for me a much safer way. So I used to set the bomb squicks up behind doors, but this is sometimes dangerous. It's good to build threat, but you don't want to door fight with bomb squicks. So if the opponent sees that, and so the breaches are better because you usually cannot fight through them. And also
by depending on the counteract to bust open the hole, you actually have more movement with your Wrecka boy fighter to get into position for the squig to set up a little bit further ahead, right?
Absolutely. So for me, movement in Wrecka Krew is really important because you have 6 models with more or less 2 APL, so your board coverage is pretty bad. So this is why another argument for going more ranged than melee with Wrecka Krew is also it plays pretty well into the dark because of the condensed environment. So you're hitting on 5s and every hit is a crit. So it's pretty good.
That's gnarly. I am definitely very inspired for another skew, as we might have suggested to be my reaction, where you just take all rockets, go all engage, and just run out there. And if you hit them all at once, the math is going to favor you.
You're surprisingly tanky in those situations too, right? Because if you do tough gets and then you stand in cover, you've got a 4-up save, you've got a reroll, you've got a heal, and every time you shoot, there's always a non-zero chance that you just make it 6 hits and your opponent just explodes.
Definitely, and the odds are actually pretty solid. And beyond that, it's like, in a way, it frees. Yes, it frees a lot of your mental capacity, and it puts a lot of strain on your opponent's mental facility, actually. Because this is what I also like about Wrecka Krew. It's very easy for the Wrecka Krew to push the mental stress to your opponent. And as long as you have CP with just a scratch, tough gits, and amped up in the next round, they are really tanky, actually.
Outside of meltaguns.
Yes, but even that is fine, and even that is fine because usually if he meltas one of your guys, it's that melta is dead afterwards. Usually.
Yeah, that's the rule. If the Melta comes out and gets one guy, that's fine, as long as we squish the Melta instantaneously. So I would assume that one of the harder matchups is going to be something like Corsairs because they have 2 separate Pierce 2 weapons, or Drukhari for the same reason because their leader's got a Blast 2 pistol, and then their normal dude's got a Blast 2 or a Pierce 2 gun.
So they are strong, but I feel like they are not specially strong versus Wrecka Krew than any other team. I feel like when it comes to Wrecka Krew, the teams that has a lot of access to stun is actually the most annoying. Either having access to stun or like Nemesis Claw with like blocking you gaining APL. That's the horror.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because you lack APL to do to even tap crit ops very often. Because you just cannot reposition dash and tap something. So, and this is, for example, one of the reasons for me you have to take explosive grenades. It's not even for the grenade themselves, although they are pretty good actually. By the way, especially into the dark, like frag grenades, 2-inch blast, you have access to kaboom. So having frag grenades with 3-inch blast and into the dark, it's far deadlier than people think.
The rule is always you can avoid blast 2, you can't really avoid blast 3.
Yes, and with kaboom, you besides the blast, you even get severe. So this is pretty good on frag grenades.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
guess I'm
so
always focused on the fact that you've got the rocket rack with the blast 2 that is also just insane because it's got a relentless rocket rack. So you're like that you
definitely,
fire it once and you're just guaranteed to get some Wrecka points normally.
definitely. This is why, so I feel like if you have the rocket rack, so everyone is looking at your rocket rack and at your bomb squicks. That is usually where people think the kaboom will be. But and some people who have more experience with Wrecker Crew know the knob is also like really powerful with these pistols. But like frag grenades in Into the Dark is pretty strong. I have wrecked some teams with that.
Yeah, you're making me want to play Wrecka Crew at this tournament that's coming up tomorrow.
So
That's pretty spicy.
The problem with Wrecker Crew on the other hand is your reliability is low. So
Yeah.
it's like, so this is the main problem with Wrecker Crew, at least for me, on tournaments. Like if it's a 3-game tournament, you can get lucky. That is possible. But my track record with Wrecker Crew on tournaments is so usually the tournaments I attend are 4 games, and I win 3 and lose 1. So it is, and it's. I don't want to say it's all luck, but you there are just these games where you just don't get Wrecker points. And then and it's also important to know if this happens, you probably have to sacrifice the demolisher, because this is also something that people tend to forget. So I usually use the demolisher as a defensively, because it's just a pain in the ass to charge him for anyone. It's just no fun. And he is tankier as hell generally. He will beat you up, and then when he's nearly dead, he explodes. So no one wants to charge him. But if you are really down on Wrecker points and just cannot roll 6s, I like to go offensive with him, because he also generates Wrecker points, and usually at least 2, by killing your enemy and killing himself. So at least then you have 2 Wrecker points, and sometimes 2 is sufficient enough to get things started.
Yeah, like gets the ball rolling.
Yes, absolutely. And when it comes, I feel like if you want to play Wrecker Crew, you have to fully embrace this chaotic nature of them. What makes them fun to play, for me at least, is I feel like if a team, so Wrecker Crew always has a comeback probability, just because how powerful Wrecker points can be. So even if you have like a really, really, really bad turning point 2 or turning point 3, and you still have some rockets left, it's like you could potentially make a comeback. It's not impossible.
Yeah, and that's always one of the hard things in Kill Team, is to find ways to come back from a slightly behind position, right? And being able to chuck 6 dice through obscurity and delete someone, that's one of those things. Just like how when you're playing a horde team, sometimes your best line is to send a dude that hits on 4s and hope you get 2 crits and delete a guy. And then,
Absolutely,
on the flip
absolutely.
side, we have Astartes, which are so good right now because they're both good when they're ahead and they're good when they're behind. Because when they're behind, they're still pretty scary. 3 actions for a single dude, and being able to shoot twice and fight twice means that they're always a threat. And especially for Angels of Death, which are super, super popular, you can just turn on No Fear and just cruise around and double tap people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's probably a similar thing to why Goremongers are pretty scary right now, because they're an elf team with strong comeback potential. Sure, they don't have good matchups against Plague Marines, but they, you have a dude with full blood tanks, and he can just cruise around, heal himself, fight twice, kill some dudes, and then still go score a point sometimes.
For sure, and their mechanic, let's compare it to Inquisition. It's like you have a lot of options, but you do not need to decide in the beginning which options to draw upon. You can just take options spontaneously, while with a team like Inquisition, you kind of have to decide in the beginning which options you're going to take. So I feel like this gives Goremongers a lot of flexibility. It's kind of similar to Legionaries versus maybe Angels of Death. It's like Legionaries, you can just swap around your marks. That makes just such a huge difference, at least in my book.
Yeah, because when you go onto a board, you can say, I'm going to have an extra inch of movement because I want to be able to get around my opponent. Like if you're playing against Battleclade and you just need that that extra movement to get around people. Slanesh is also maybe good against Raveners, because turning Raveners into a 4s to hit team is pretty rough.
Yeah, definitely. Oh,
And I
maybe
guess,
one last.
Wrecka Crew don't like that stuff either.
True. With Wrecka Crew, I want to add one thing I forgot to mention. When you're behind, or when it comes to generating Wrecka point, why I mentioned that the bomb squigs are important, not just for the obvious reasons, but you want to tag models with your explosion. The reason for that is if you tag them, they count as ranged attack. As soon as you're tagging people, your normal rocket guys are generating auto Wrecka points when you shoot at them. So this is something that I feel like people often forget. So it's like tagging people and then shooting them afterwards with rockets generates safe Wrecka points.
Interesting. Just because the bomb squig's explosion is a shot, so being able to then shoot with one of your gunners in the background guarantees you extra Wrecka points, so you can farm up from a 0 position.
Absolutely. And the same thing with frag grenades. This is also one additional reason why I like frag grenades. You often do not need to kill everyone, but if you have use Kaboom, have a 3-inch blast, and then you just hit 3 models or something like that, even if they just get some ping damage, they are all tagged.
Okay, so this is coming from the Tank Buster Gunner has a datasheet ability called Competitive Streak, and that is once per shoot action, if this operative shoots an enemy operative that another friendly operative has already shot during this turning point, you gain a Wrecka point. And then the thing to add on to this is determine this when you select a valid target, but you can include any secondary targets when doing so, for example, from the blast. So that is if you blast 3 guys with the bomb squig, then you hit them with another blast from this guy, and you hit 2 or 3 of them, does that mean each of them is also giving you a Wrecka point?
No, as far as I understand, you only get 1. But
I think the big thing is just people who got blasted, you can also tag with this. So
yes, absolutely.
First target could have died, but then anyone else that got touched,
exactly. This is how I read it.
Also get a point.
Yes.
But it is a way to get Wrecka points that doesn't require your boss knob to go into danger close, because the boss knob is one of the bigger heroes of the team, right? 2 shots, 6 on, 4 ceaseless is just
absolutely
rude.
And he is actually pretty good if you manage to get him onto the tower of Beta Decima. So Beta Decima, of course, is a pain point for various reasons, but he is large enough that he can actually see more than people realize. So it's actually not a bad position for him to be.
Yeah, and he can get into an okay scrap with most things. 4-on-3,
yes.
4-5 is respectable. Not great, but he can defend himself.
Yes, but going back on the rocket launcher. The gunner, I always forgot how they're called. I give them
Tank Buster Gunners.
Yes, Tank Buster Gunner. It's this is also an argument for more Tank Buster Gunners, because if you play all Shooty Wrecka Crew team, you are gaining a lot of Wrecka points.
Yeah, it just lets you farm up a lot easier. But you do probably want to have 1 or 2 melee distractions to go force your opponent to interact with you. Obviously, the squigs aren't going to do all of the work on that front. And I actually, when thinking about this, I feel like the fighter is actually more useful than the demolisher or the crusher in a lot of cases. Just because opening up a hole means that your 2 bomb squigs have way more room to set up.
Yes, it depends on the map and the opponent, I would say. The fighter has the hidden advantage that everyone is underestimating him in melee. He has a 5-6 damage brutal track, which is pretty powerful for the standard melee guy.
Yeah, and he can double fight.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, whereas the Demolisher is probably more notably a good defender, because he can always just turn the hammer around and blow everyone up rather than just doing 4-on-3s, 4-5, which is respectable. It works well on some stuff, but the Demolisher is not the best at setting other things up. He's a defensive piece and a suicide piece. So having him backed up by 4 gunners while your 2 squigs run up is probably a little less good than the fighter giving you brand new ways for your squigs to get in safely.
Yes. I would just love if break stuff, the ability, the special action on the fighter would either generate a Wrecka point or would trigger the tank up, meaning the 1+1 APL. That would just be he would be so much better.
Yeah, I mean, Wrecka Krew, I think, are doing okay as far as like week-to-week stats go. I mean, because they are so feast or famine, I think they're like probably fairly balanced, because any good tournament is probably be balanced out by a butt tournament on the other end.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
the cosmic balance of all of the orcs' collective D6s is balanced out.
Yeah, I feel like Wrecka Krew is more like a lifestyle choice. You have to embrace your offensive potential and play and set it up like that. So I never play defensive with Wrecka Krew. It's just like it. I'm less afraid of mayhem than my opponent is.
And I think there's probably something to be said for range Wrecka Krew. You're playing security and just doing take ground and just leaving someone inside a box while everyone else just nails the people in the box with tons of rockets.
Yes, so I depending on the map and the opponent, I either take contain or take ground. But as I said before, my standard team has like 3 ranged guys, so 1 of the Rocketeers and 2 of the gunners. But I can absolutely see like only taking 1 melee guy would definitely work against a lot of teams.
Contain is great for that because your opponent is incentivized. And for most of these maps, when you're playing contain and your opponent's on your half of the board, they're kind of in weird positions most of the time. Or close enough where your bomb squigs are for sure going to be able to tag them.
Yes, definitely. Like, especially on Into the Dark. Into the Dark is... at first, I thought Wrecka Krew would have a miserable time playing Into the Dark because of the door. You need the APL for door opening, which kind of really slows you down. But with all the condensed environment and just the way the maps are, it works pretty great, and everyone is and the opponent has to clutter up on doors, and that's just great for blast.
Plus all the opportunities for ignore obscuring. Well, I mean, you don't really ignore it, but you basically ignore it.
Yes, absolutely. So I really like it. Oh, and also but I also like the fighter in Into the Dark for just breaking equipment. This is also so it's not like the fighter ability of breaking stuff. I wouldn't say I use it a lot, but I actually made it work sometimes in unexpected situations, like
breaking the barbed wire that people line up.
No. Breaking. Which bomb was it? It's either Wormblade or Brood Brothers. One of them can lay not a mine, but the remote bomb or something that he actually has to detonate. And
wow.
And yeah, so he can either detonate it as an action or as a reaction when the model dies.
I think this is the Brood Brothers have a saboteur bomb. I don't.
So
does this work? Terrain feature. If it's an equipment terrain feature, remove it. Otherwise, place one of your bleach markers. I don't know if this works, but I think it would be sick if it did. I just don't actually think
so. I played it like this, and there were no.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think that it's that crazy that someone thinks it works this way. I don't think it does though, because break stuff
just a marker,
equipment terrain feature, and it's just a marker. So, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if you thought you could do it, and honestly, it would be sick. I don't think it works, unfortunately.
Yes. Okay. Good. And this is. Now I'm sad because it was such a sick move. It was such a sick move. Yes.
I mean, being able to break, the Phobos Marine Saboteur mine would also be good. Fun. But I'm pretty sure equipment terrain is specific enough, which is unfortunate. I think the most of the cases I've seen break stuff is breaking holes and then breaking barbed wire, because people lay out barbed wire like, get out of here, nerd, and then charge them.
Yeah. But generally, I'm just very disrespectful against barbed wires, since they were really insanely strong in the very beginning. But now I feel like it's easy enough to get around often.
Yeah, you either run around them. It's just like a 3-inch tax. Before it was like, I'm gonna tax you your whole turn, but now you can't be around doors, you can't be on all this stuff, so it just like restricts movement lanes a little bit, which is probably
maybe I haven't thought this through, but maybe with the new errata, with the new jump rules, maybe I can see barbed wire having a major comeback, because you cannot just randomly jump anymore, right? You can only jump from vantage points.
Only when you're leaving vantage.
Yes, and that means, for example, you can place barbed wires close to a wall that people usually would climb over. And then they just cannot, because they cannot jump over it. And the model cannot be placed. So maybe there's something going on. But you can have the same effect by taking 2 light barricades instead. So I'm not sure if this is as intended, but I can see this becoming a thing.
Light barricades you can hide behind. If you put a razor wire somewhere that messes up someone's movement, if they stand behind it, you just shoot them up.
Yeah.
All right. Any other German kill team scene people you want to call out before we head out for the day?
Sure, there are a lot of. I would say there are a lot of people I could mention, but I want to call out Stefan from Aschaffenburg. He is very active in organizing tournaments, and I want to call out 2 people who are insanely good players, but do not show up on tournaments. So one is Jens, and the other one is Dirk. The one is, their code names are Adeptus Printorium, because one has an array of 3D printers, and the other one is my Adeptus Exercitatus. This is the one who is strategizing with me and testing my theories and just brainstorming crazy ideas.
Nice. Do you guys have like a central German kill team Discord, or is it still pretty spread out at the moment?
We now have a central German Discord, but it is still, we haven't funneled in everyone. So this is more like yes.
We'll have links in the show notes. So for any of our German listeners who showed up when we were talking to June, hopefully, that will be helpful for everyone.
Definitely. And if you guys are coming to Frankfurt, give me a shout, and I can do kill team blind dating. So I will set you up.
Well, I'll be at the WTC at least, so I'll meet the German contingent there. So
awesome. Thanks a lot. And maybe we will do this again in the future. Who knows?
We'll catch back up in the future. Thanks again for coming on, Konstantin, talking a little bit about Germany and the growing scene, that's split up a little bit, and a little bit about Inquisition agents and Wrecka Krew.
Yes.
As always, thank you, listening.